So, as I said before, many of the founders were concerned that the religious institution would become the spiritual tyranny, which has happened, most especially in the Catholic Church because of their misunderstanding of Jesus' word and their need to control. As God is my witness. Can you understand why Jesus called out? I feel like I repeat this all the time, but of course it's not like it'll be seen. It's not like the government would care, okay? Any of the government. Because I think the government fears not having a religious institution, even though our founders understood the dangers of this, okay? And the dangers is that the church becomes a faction, okay? And they said factions would destroy America, okay? And I don't care what any Republican administration or Democrat administration says, because they both are at fault. You have allowed the Catholic Church to become a faction. And the thing is, here's the saddest part. This is the saddest part to me. Is I think that truly a country that is looking to that is looking to God and praying to God, talking to God, getting to know God, okay? Which didn't mean you had to go to a church, but I think every government in the world is like, oh no, we need to have people going to church in order to say we're Christian. Okay, got it. Do you ever look at it from God's eyes, or try to? I mean, I understand we're not God, but I do try to look at it like, how would God look at this? So we're saying we're Christian, we're saying we're Catholic, so we're Christian somehow. And even though we have this the continual fruit that keeps developing is corruption, and this wanting to be the only church, and they are the supremacy, and a massive historical child abuse problem. So I think to myself, how would God look at that? And I believe that God would say, what is it about my word that my people didn't understand when I said you will know them by their fruits? But when you have governments that don't even honor what clearly the founders understood, and that, I mean, here's the thing, I'm not some big fan of Thomas Jefferson's. However, I can totally understand in his writings what he's saying. Because he's saying you're just giving your mind over to a tyrannical spiritual entity that wants to claim that it is above others, and it is not. This was the whole point to Jesus. To get rid of this. And every government in the world has gone against Jesus. They have. So here's one of the ways they've done it. Because I said in my last video, last night, really early this morning, I said that, or in the middle of the night, that the government will protect religious freedom over protecting children. They will, it's a fact. So there's been this debate about confession, okay? You do not need a priest to forgive you. The apostles were allowed to forgive when they received the Holy Spirit. If you have the Holy Spirit in you, it means you have that ability as well. But even when I was a young child, that stood out to me. It did. It was like, wait a minute. Why do I have to go into this little black box and do this whole ritual when if God is God, he can hear all things. He will know my heart. He will know if I'm praying at my bedside nighttime prayers and I tell him I'm sorry, he'll hear me. Now, I understand there's a need to be honest. It's but you don't need that. Doesn't need to be with a hierarchy structure. So the very thing that God came to destroy which was the hierarchy because it was leading so many people into the gates of hell, is the very thing we have still, most especially in the Catholic Church. And then what the governments do, whether it's the US or it's France or Europe or England, is they and their justice departments go out of its way to protect religious freedom at all costs, that they disregard that, first of all, none of you are really following Jesus. But then the government, again, like, where is the line of, it's like the line of separation is like this. It's like this zigzag, like, oh, sometimes we're going to be over here protecting them. Other times it's, oh, no, religious freedom. Well, which is it? It's one or the other. And they would say, we protect, what do you protect? I mean, like, really, what do you, don't even know anymore what the point the government serves, except that when you are protecting an institution that, first of all, the reason it has a systemic historical child abuse is because they get Jesus's word wrong. They don't want to admit that Jesus was sick of the hierarchy, because that is the very thing the Pharisees were, and they were leading people astray. So does it not make sense? That's the reason Jesus was giving the Holy Spirit. He was giving you the prophet ability, because that's what was going on in the Old Testament, was the Spirit of God was entering the prophets. So when Jesus came, he had to be sacrificed, because by the body dying, then his Spirit could enter you. When you were saved, when you finally came to believe in him, then you yourself, when you have that hierarchy, that Catholic Church, these church hierarchies mean nothing. They mean nothing. But this world, oh no, this world's too afraid of that. No, we would just have man thinking for themselves. Right. The very thing that Thomas Jefferson was hoping that mankind would do is think for yourself. The government protects religious institutions more than individuals in some respects, because religious freedom is a constitutionally protected collective right, encompassing both individual beliefs and institutional exercise of religion. Okay, so again, the problem here is religion. When did Jesus talk about religion? I mean, he didn't. Okay, but then, his is, the church wants to claim its hierarchy. This is what Jesus said was the problem, okay? They're never going to recognize that, because then it limits their need. Them being necessary. But as long as the governments and the church itself doesn't want to be honest about what Jesus's purpose was here, and they want to gloss over that he was giving you the very ability to know what to do and what to follow through the Holy Spirit and not through the church structure hierarchy, then you can continue to have a country that has a government that just allows itself to be led by fools. No matter what party, it doesn't matter what party. This protection is intended to ensure religious organizations can operate and practice their faith without undue government interference while maintaining neutrality. How is it neutral? It's not neutrality. First of all, it's a total inability to understand that this is the exact reason why Jesus didn't want the church hierarchy. It's exactly the reason. Is this right here? The First Amendment's free exercise clause protects both individuals and religious institutions from government actions that burden religious practices. The government must treat religion neutrally. They don't treat it neutrally, because you protect it. Do you see what I'm saying? You don't. You cross the line. They can either sink or swim on their own. That would be we're not crossing the line. Instead, you have the Trump administration, you have other that will go out of its way to protect the institution, because all everybody seems to care about is the aesthetics. Nope, we need to have this because we need to have the church hierarchy, even though we ourselves don't understand Jesus's word and what God wanted. But we will continue down our foolish track of saying it's about separation of church and state while we go out of our way to protect the church.